Greetings and welcome to the most awaited show of the entire year, Last Phone Standing. Now, almost everyone does these best phone lists and reviews, but no one does it like this. The best phones of the year are represented here by the best journalists and media personalities. Questions are raised, there are answers that take place, debates take place, and then the unique part, the voting is done by the very same panel of fantastic journalists. Like I said, there is nothing like the last phone standing. More phones folded this year. More phones came with more cameras than ever before. Phones lasted longer with better batteries and better protection. So it's been a year where things have dramatically and totally changed. Phones came smaller, phones came bigger. More importantly, more phones were released this year than ever before. Thus, choosing a best phone of the year is both difficult as well as a big responsibility. So let's meet the people who will actually make this happen. The first person, of course, a big favorite out here, Deepak Dhingra, editor-in-chief, 91 Mobiles, a very respected journalist. Next, Dhruv Bhutani, editor, Android Authority. He's been doing tech since forever and ever. He looks very different, but the rest of it, I hope, remains the same. Swapnil Mathur joins us, head of Test Center Digit. He did an amazing best gadgets of their own, a very, very nice list. Shlok Srivastav, founder, Tech Burner, one of the biggest tech YouTubers in the country. And then Mukul Sharma, YouTube creator, Stuff Listings. Very unique style with the way he actually presents everything. And Gopal Sathe, editor-in-chief, Gadget 360, the man whose words and whose verdicts carry incredible weight. A silent jury will also be joining us. That's Rubina and Lakshay from the Cell Guru team, but they are silent. They will not be representing the phones. Each person will represent a phone. One question from each panel, one from me, then we'll vote on each phone. How will the scoring be done? The parameters are very simple: brand value, uniqueness, functionality, value for money. We also have many other categories that we will be doing a straight vote for. So many other things that we'll be actually doing. So let's take a look at the contenders. These are the best 6 phones of the year. Top contenders under 30,000 rupees.
The contenders for the last phone standing 2020 under 30,000 rupees are Google Pixel 4a, Vivo V20 Pro, OnePlus Nord, Poco X3, Samsung Galaxy M51, Oppo Reno 3 Pro.
So the first phone is a phone that finally Google decided to bring to India. So thank you, Google, for doing that. You usually skip India for everything. It's the Pixel 4a, and Dhruv Bhutani is going to tell us as to why he thinks this is the best phone under 30,000 rupees.
Yeah, Rajiv. So, I mean, if you look at it, in all of these spec races and everything about, the different kinds of looks and feels of phones, people are forgetting that a phone is at the end of the day a tool. It's a phone. And that's where the Pixel 4a really excels. For under 30,000 rupees, it gives you pretty much the best camera that you can get across smartphones. It's as good as the flagships out there. The software experience is bar none. And yeah, I mean, the performance is fantastic. You're going to get consistent, fast updates. The battery life lasts one full day. That's pretty much reason enough. You need a phone which will last you a couple of years, which will give you usability in the things that matter. And that's where the Pixel excels. It might not have all the gimmicks of all the other phones on this list, but at the end of the day, does it really care? Does it really matter?
Okay, Dhruv, thank you so much for telling us all about the Pixel 4a. Mukul has a question. Mukul, tell us, what would you like to ask Dhruv?
So Dhruv, as you said, the Google Pixel 4a smartphone has pretty much all that we need in a mid-range smartphone. But there are a couple of corners that Google has cut here. First of all, there is lack of 4G support here. And what do you say about the lack of an ultra-wide lens? Of course, the single camera on the Google Pixel 4a is a very potent camera in itself. But don't you think the Google Pixel 4a lacks versatility here when it comes to the camera?
I mean, it's a simple answer for that. It's quality over quantity. You look at a OnePlus phone, the OnePlus Nord, it's got multiple cameras, but the quality is nowhere close to a Pixel 4a. So, you take one camera which actually does better photography than multiple cameras which are kind of terrible. About the other one, did you mean 5G support?
Yeah, 5G support is what you meant.
Yeah, I mean, 5G, if it rolls out by the second half of next year, I mean, most people will be upgrading their phones anyway. It's not that big a deal. It's not a big deal in the US. It's certainly not a big deal in India. even when 5G rolls out, it's not as if anyone outside the metros is getting it at launch, and even then coverage is going to be spotty. So you can't buy a phone today on the basis of network connectivity that you're going to get 2 or 3 years down the line.
All right, the next phone is a phone that made a lot of headlines when it came out, the Vivo V20 Pro, and telling us all about it is Shlok.
Vivo V20 Pro. This is the smartphone that you would call the flagship smartphone of Vivo. It is the smartphone that Vivo focuses on the most. It is the most selling smartphone of Vivo, and that's why they have put in the best in this smartphone at this price point. It comes out as a balanced phone, which is rare from Vivo. It has a great camera. You also get like this wide angle selfie camera, and usually most of the phones in this price point have like the secondary camera is just useless. It's a depth sensing or something like that. But at this price point, all the cameras that are in this phone are useful. It scores the best in terms of camera. When you hold it, it feels like a premium phone. It feels more than 30,000. It has a great processor. And in general, the experience is a very balanced experience, and pretty much everything, it checks all the boxes. So it's the phone to get, I feel.
So Shlok, thank you so much for that. Good phone. But tell me, one of the biggest confusions in this phone is that it's a great phone, but the regular V20 pretty much has everything that you actually get in the V20 Pro. I mean, a little bit of a difference here or there and about 5,000 to 6,000 rupees more.
You would buy the Pro first because 5G, although a lot of people would say that 5G does not make sense right now, but all the phones that are currently running on 5G, they have like a separate modem and they provide better connection in Wi-Fi and pretty much in data speeds in general. And the second reason would be the better processor. So 5,000 rupees can be a little bit of a stretch, but you get a very much more powerful processor, Snapdragon 765, which is also like a way of future-proofing your phone.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Shlok. Very well presented. Let's send in our votes, please. So 2 phones done, 4 more to go, but at this present moment, we're going to take another category into consideration. This is best phone under 10,000 rupees. Here are the actual phones. So the best phones under 10,000 rupees, the Motorola Moto E7 Plus, the Realme Narzo 20A, the Redmi 9 Prime, Samsung Galaxy M11, and the Tecno Pova. So let's find out from our panelists which phone they're voting on.
I'll go with the Narzo 20A on this.
All right. 1 vote for that. Gopal?
I'm voting for the Redmi 9 Prime for this category.
Okay, great. Swapnil?
I'm all in with the Narzo 20A as well.
The Redmi 9 Prime.
I'll go with the Redmi 9 Prime.
I would go with the Narzo 20A.
Okay. All right. I'll also go with the Redmi 9 Prime on this one. So our final vote is that the Redmi 9 Prime wins this one. All right. The next phone is the Poco X3, and telling us all about it is Deepak Dhingra.
Okay, the Poco X3 is actually a specs beast, right? So I'm not going to go into all the specs, but just touching upon the highlights with a 120 Hertz display, 732G processor, 6,000 mAh battery, and quad cameras, all of it that actually delivers at the end, most importantly. For me, I think the special bits are the tiny bits which a lot of people tend to miss, and those are aspects like the IP53 rating, aspects like the stereo speakers, and also the infrared blaster, which I think are all very useful additions to a device which is very well-rounded and delivers on most aspects which a person would need at that particular price point. Right from the gaming use case to work, entertainment, all of it, right? And it's a very well-rounded device, as I said, unbeatable at its price point.
All right, Swapnil, you can ask your question.
So Deepak sir, I wanted to ask you, the 120 Hertz display, is it actually of any practical use? Because you can't actually play any game at that refresh rate. That's point number 1. And point number 2, such a high refresh rate also tends to drain the battery a lot faster. So do you not feel that it could in fact end up being detrimental to the phone's performance overall and also adding to the price point?
Swapnil, to answer both your questions, I agree with you to some extent. As far as the question on battery life is concerned, I think you always have the option of switching to 60 hertz, right? If you want to conserve battery, so that's there. As far as the usefulness of a 120 hertz display is concerned, there are 2 points. I think one is that high refresh rate screens have become somewhat of a very coveted feature these days for most phones. That is something that we found out through research. But also, if you leave the gaming use case aside, there is a bit of improvement that you would see in terms of smoothness when you're scrolling through the interface and stuff like that. So 120 hertz in that sense, I think is a huge benefit.
So Deepak sir, the Poco X3, as you said, it's a very good smartphone. It's a well-priced smartphone. But I have one doubt, and this is something which a lot of people have been asking me. A Poco X3 is a very heavy smartphone. And for a person like me, it's completely okay. I'm fine by the weight and the heft of the Poco X3. But don't you think that this smartphone cannot be called a smartphone for everyone? Because, even people like my mom won't be able to use it, with that much comfort as, I would be comfortable.
A very valid question, Mukul. I think, it makes sense. It's got a 6,000 mAh battery. So, there are compromises to that, right? So with a very heavy and a big large size battery, it's very natural for a phone to be thick and heavy. And the Poco X3 is definitely that. So I would agree with you. It's not meant for everyone. For someone who wants a light, a compact phone, it's not for them. But largely the audience that we are looking at, youngsters, people who want to game on it, people who want to use it for work and look at a well-rounded package within a certain price point, it delivers and it's a great value for a money device.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Now, just everybody please vote. So 3 phones are done. That means we are halfway through. Let's move on now to the next one. Mukul is going to tell us all about the phone that actually more or less got excitement into this category, the OnePlus Nord.
So I believe the OnePlus Nord is probably the best smartphone under 30K. It has an AMOLED panel. It has a 90 Hz refresh rate. It has a 5G ready Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G processor, a decent quad rear camera setup, good build quality. We have Corning Gorilla Glass 5 protection front and back. And other than that, okay, specifications are one part of any smartphone's journey. But the major chunk of, the hype goes to the level of marketing a company pulls off. And OnePlus did a tremendous job when it comes to marketing the OnePlus Nord. Across all the leading social media platforms, we kept on talking about the Nord. And it had an AR launch, something we deeply needed in, 2020, given the pandemic and all. It had a documentary. So overall, I believe the OnePlus Nord is a complete package and it's a title-worthy smartphone.
Mukul, you mentioned the marketing and all the hype around the phone, but the phone is kind of an antithesis to that. Like the phone definitely settles in too many ways. There were major software bugs. Some of them are still there. There are issues that have plagued OnePlus phones forever. Chrome browser lags still, even on their flagship phones. The display tint issues. None of this sounds like a very good phone.
Dhruv, first of all, when we talk about bugs, so this is a fact that almost all the companies, in the current smartphone segment are facing those bugs. We cannot even ignore Apple in this regard. So yes, at least I'm happy that OnePlus is trying its level best to, roll out as many fixes as possible. We are getting at least, bi-monthly updates here. And there are a lot of other companies which have, privacy issues, for example. So at least OnePlus is, OnePlus does not have those issues. And yes, I agree. A lot of display issues were there when OnePlus Nord was launched initially. But gradually over time, I believe OnePlus has fixed all those things. And I hope that the Nord keeps getting better. And yeah, I'll say in the mid-range segment, a lot of other brands also have such issues. Yes, and when we talk about the design, OnePlus Nord's design is, not a unique revolutionary design. I'll say it's kind of inspired. I agree to that. But which other smartphone will you suggest, under 30,000 rupees, which has a new revolutionary design?
Great. Thank you so much. Very well presented, Mukul. Thank you so much for that. Let's all put in our votes, please. So after the OnePlus Nord, the next one is another phone that made a lot of headlines, the Samsung M51. Gopal Sathe is going to tell us exactly why.
Galaxy M51 is a really good phone, and I'm not going to get into the details of the specs. If anybody wants, they should visit Gadgets 360 and read over there. But I will tell you that this is an excellent phone on a number of fronts, and especially in these days, in the pandemic days, when we're all stuck on our phones all the time for so many reasons, that giant battery in the Galaxy M51 is a huge selling point to me. I don't think any phone in this price point competes in terms of the battery life, the amount of use you'll get out of the phone. And in all other areas, it's a contender. It's not the best, but it is definitely good or even good enough. Samsung has done a really thorough job, and its M series has shown how, it's approaching this segment and how it is giving something for everyone at a few different price points. And of those phones, I'd say that the Galaxy M51 is a no-brainer to pick right now.
Thank you, Gopal, for that. Now, you have to put your hand on your heart when I ask you this question, because it requires extreme honesty. Most people describe this phone from Samsung as a power bank with a screen, because everything else in the phone is a compromise, whether it's the looks, the screen, the refresh rate, the cameras. So if it's only one thing going for it, which is the battery, and everything else is compromised, how can it be the best phone under 30,000?
You're right that it does make compromises in other areas, but it's not compromising beyond a point. You see, everything else is good enough and the battery life is phenomenal. That is how I see it.
All right, let's move on to the next phone here. Once again, a phone that really comes from a company that always leads with a lot of innovation behind them. But is this the best phone under 30,000 rupees? Well, the Oppo Reno 3 Pro, and telling us all about it, Swapnil.
Well, Rajiv, you did save the best for last. I'm not going to go over specs, and I'm purely going to talk to you about the experience. When you buy a phone, you want to do everything for you well. Now, when we talk about camera, imagine sitting in front of the most beautiful landscape you've seen and having a phone that does not have an ultra-wide. Or imagine sitting in your home and you see a cat pass by or a pigeon pass by, but you don't have a telephoto lens on your camera. So that's a problem that the Oppo Reno 3 Pro addresses very well. It gives you this entire camera stack that can shoot across a wide range of focal lengths. Next, if we talk about performance, if we talk about day-to-day use, the battery life on this thing is phenomenal, day and a half easy, and it also has 30-watt fast charging. So even if you do drain the battery quickly, you can always top it up. Last but not the least, if you're into gaming, and you may be wondering, well, this has a Helio-based chipset, but the fact is it still lets you game really well, and it allows you to game in HDR, in fact, if that's something that you look forward to.
Great, Swapnil. Thank you so much. Questions? Wow, you've got everybody tongue-tied here, Swapnil, with that presentation. There are no questions. Okay, Mukul has one finally.
Swapnil, yes, no doubts about it. The Reno 3 Pro is a good phone, but the Reno 4 Pro is already out there in the market, and the price difference is not too much. If we think about it, the successor is already there. The next successor is right around the corner. So how do I recommend the Reno 3 Pro to be the best smartphone? That clearly means that I'm calling the Reno 4 Pro slightly inferior, don't you think?
Two reasons. One, the Reno 3 Pro is actually under 30K. That's point number one, right? Mm-hmm. We are looking at phones under 30. Secondly, Oppo has a long-standing tradition of pushing out OS updates that support the phone well into the next 2 years. Now, ColorOS is already very beautifully optimized, and I've seen that they've done very good work in keeping their phones running fast and smooth, even 1.5 years into their lifeline. At least that's the one that I'm using. So I believe that this is not a compromise at all. It's not about old or new. It is about what you can afford right now. And given what you can afford, this is the best.
So those were the 6 phones that we were actually talking about as the best phones under 30,000 rupees. The votes and the scores are being tallied right now. But while we do that, let's take a vote on the next category that we have. Let's take a vote from the panel. Best camera phone of the year. इसके contenders हैं Google Pixel 4a, Vivo X50 Pro, Samsung Note 20 Ultra, iPhone 12 Pro Max, Oppo Reno 4 Pro. Deepak, what would your vote be?
Rajiv, my choice on this would be the Apple 12 Pro Max.
The iPhone 12 Pro Max. All right, Gopal?
I have to agree with Deepak. The iPhone 12 Pro Max is fantastic.
All right, let's go with 2 votes for that. Swapnil, outlier?
Same for me. No, not at all. The iPhone 12 Pro Max, hands down.
Pro Max.
Not on this one. The video capabilities and the HDR on the iPhone 12 Pro Max beats all the phones hands down.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the popular choice here. It's definitely the iPhone 12 Pro Max.
All right, I don't think we need to go to a vote with anybody else because it's unanimous over 6 people already. So best camera phone of the year, iPhone 12 Pro Max. एक और वोट लेते हैं before we come up with the results. Best phone under 20,000 rupees. Moto G 5G, Moto One Fusion Plus, Redmi Note 9 Pro Max, Poco X3, Galaxy M31s, Realme 7 Pro, Vivo V17, Oppo F17. Very hotly contended category. Let's find out who the winner is.
So Poco X3 for me.
Poco X3, Gopal?
So this is a tough category for me, but I think the Samsung Galaxy M31s just about takes it.
I would go with the Poco X3.
Poco X3 for me as well.
I would go with the Samsung on this one. The M31s with the screen takes it.
The Poco X3.
So therefore, once again, we have another winner. The Poco X3 takes this category. The best phone under 20,000 rupees. Okay, so we've got the results and the results are very, very interesting. We're going to start off with the third. And the third is a tie, exactly the same numbers, and that is the Vivo and the Pixel 4a. So at number 2 is the Poco X3. Quite close, but not as close as I had thought, and therefore the winner is the OnePlus Nord. So that then was show 1 in our last phone standing. But do remember, we're just getting warmed up because what's the next show? The next show is the best phone irrespective of price. I mean, this is the best phone of 2020 and boy, do we have an incredible array and a category. And of course, the same panel will represent them. So I'll see you in the next show right here on Last Phone Standing Part 2.